Thanks for your company. The remains of former United Nations Secretary General Kofi Annan has been laid in state at the Accra International Conference Center for public viewing. The general public will be allowed to file past the body to pay their last respects from now till 4 p.m. local time. Let's begin with a rap about the man, Kofi Annan.
The world that I'm working to create is a world that should be of interest to all of us.
A man conscious of the lives of the millions around the world, ready to touch the very core of humanity in the best way possible.
I'm working to create a world that is stable, that is peaceful, where we as human beings realize that we cannot consume the resources of the world the way we are doing, as if there's no tomorrow. It's going to be a disaster for our children and our grandchildren. The farmer knows instinctively that if you take something from the earth today, you have to put something back to be able to return to harvest tomorrow. Somehow, when we move to the city, we lose that instinct. We need to create a world that is equitable, that is stable, and a world where we bear in mind the needs of others and not only what we need immediately.
He reformed the UN's bureaucracy and worked to combat HIV, especially in Africa. To sum it all, he changed the world. Though he's been on the receiving end of some harsh criticism for some of the world's atrocities, for what critics described as the UN's slow response to some crises, the late Nobel Peace Prize winner held his head high.
It was a failure of all of us. It was our collective failure. The list I have given you, we all failed Rwanda.
But the world went numb at news of his passing last August. Kenya's former premier Raila Odinga will not forget his role in leading a peace accord when his country was on the brink.
Kofi Annan is a great friend of Kenya. As you all remember, when this country was on the precipice of tipping over, it was Kofi Annan who led the mission that intervened and reconciled our people and ended up with the signing of a peace accord, which translated in the formation of a grand coalition government. Kofi went further to supervise the implementation of recommendations contained in that accord. For another 4 years, every 6 months he was here in our country supervising the implementation of the accord.
In a rare moment of unity, leaders around the globe, from Tony Blair to Vladimir Putin, remembered his charisma, commitment, and diplomacy. President Akufo-Addo led a raft of tributes by Ghanaians. He said the late diplomat excelled in the various undertakings of his life, leaving in his trail most pleasant memories. Like on his last day at the UN, the late illustrious son of Ghana said his final goodbye to the world in his Bern hospital bed in Switzerland.
Dear friends and colleagues, saying goodbye is never easy. I have spent most of my life working with the United Nations. I feel it is my home. I can think of no other job in the world that would have been so rewarding. And I have met wonderful people along the way and made many friends around the world. It has been an extraordinary privilege to serve as Secretary General. I believe we can all feel proud of what we have done together in that time to address some of the world's most pressing challenges. Sometimes we have shared the exhilaration of success, such as winning the Nobel Peace Prize in 2001. At others, we have faced bitter trials, especially the tragic loss of 22 of our friends and colleagues in Baghdad in 2003. Without your support, I could not have achieved what I did or got through some very difficult times.
The remains arrived in Ghana Monday with a brief ceremony led by the Ghana Armed Forces and the President of the Republic for the funeral and burial rites to commence. The late Busumuru Kofi Annan will be finally interred at the military cemetery with full military honors and a 17-gun salute Thursday after an elaborate service to be attended by UN officials, heads of state, diplomatic delegations, and the general public.
I will count on you to carry on your indispensable work, and I wish you all success in the years ahead.
Rest well, sir.
Maxwell Agbagba joins us live from the funeral grounds. He's standing by with the commander of the airport division of the Ghana Police Service. Hello, Maxwell. What are the security arrangements?
Well, hello, Benes. The line is breaking, but I'm sure you're asking about what is happening here on the ground. I'll be telling you that shortly. But joining us right now is Chief Superintendent Henry Otu. He is the commander of the ministry's division. He's going to tell us the security arrangement for this 3-day, burial service for the late UN Secretary General. He's here with me. We're going to find out from him what preparations and what measures they've put in place. Chief Superintendent, you're welcome to JoyNews.
All right.
Welcome to JoyNews.
Thank you.
What are the security arrangements you've made for this service, this burial service?
Oh, okay. Thank you. No, events of this nature actually call for very good security. And so planning has been in place, and as I speak with you, we have put in place, we've drawn a number of units to this very function. We have the SWAT from the national headquarters, SWAT from the regional headquarters. We also have the foreign police units, whom you find their water cannon here. We also have the visibility police here, and also the CID also with us here. As also we have the motor traffic department also managing traffic. And so it's a comprehensive sort of security that we have put in place to ensure that the place remains very calm and safe.
Well, I was speaking to one of the officers from the MTTD, and he was telling me that today they don't really anticipate, much traffic, but the traffic really will be on the day of the burial service, which is on Thursday, and then tomorrow when you expect some heads of delegations, heads of recognized groups, ministers of states, all of them coming here to come and file past the body.
Yeah, exactly so. As you are aware, today is for the general public, and even though we expect that they will come, but we know it will not be in that numbers. If they come in the numbers too, we've put in place the necessary arrangements to actually contain whatever numbers that will be here. And as we speak tomorrow, we have also put in place arrangements to also ensure that all those coming will be safe and there will be nothing untoward.
Okay. Yeah. Should we expect any roadblocks tomorrow and then Thursday?
At the moment, we only have blocked the road from the AU runabout, that's the Reed runabout, to the stadium traffic light here. And as the days unfold, we'll also know the areas to block so that we don't inconvenience motorists.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to say a big thank you for talking to us. So you just heard Chief Superintendent Henry Otu. He's the commander for the ministry's division, telling us about security arrangements they've put in place or they've made for the 3-day funeral of the late UN Secretary General. Well, to report what is happening here, behind me, Benes, you can see two huge pictures of the former UN Secretary General, very close to the conference center, right at the entrance of the conference center, I should say. We have some drummers welcoming mourners who some of them who are walking in The organizers, those in charge, I should say they are expecting hundreds of Ghanaians to come here to come and pay their last respect. That would start at exactly 10 o'clock a.m. But just to give you an idea of what is happening in the foyer, our cameras will not be allowed in there. In fact, if you want to take a still photograph, you will not be allowed. If you want to go in to pick footages of what is happening in the foyer, that's also not going to be allowed. But inside there, I've been there, and the caskets of the late Secretary General is resting on a catafalque. So what happens is that if you walk in there, you just go past this, and then go past it, and then you come out. That is what is happening. Security is very tight also at the entrance. I've seen scores of police officers at the entrance, some of them with guns, some of them also strategically positioned behind the Accra International Conference Center. I've also seen personnel from the National Disaster Management Organization. They have their canopy, one of their canopies erected there with some beds inside. I'm told that is to cater for people who may pass out when they come here to the ground. As you heard the commander mention, there are some crowd control vehicles belonging to the Front Police Unit also on standby. One very close to me, about 50 meters away from me. On my left-hand side, there's one also positioned outside the precincts of the Accra International Conference Center. Security is really tight here. We are told that from 10 o'clock a.m. To 4 o'clock p.m., if you're out there and you want to come here to come and pay your last respect, you can do that, because on Wednesday and then on Thursday, you may not be able, in fact, you will not be able to do that if you are not part of the groups that will be allowed to pay their final respect. We're told heads of delegations, heads of recognized bodies, members of parliaments, heads of states, and all of that will be allowed to file past the remains of the late Secretary General tomorrow. So basically, that is what is happening here on the ground. Now, up there also, we have some Ghana flags, hoisted together with some flags of the United Nations. In fact, we know the significant role that the late Kofi Annan actually played by the United Nations as the Secretary General. We know his works about the Millennium Development Goals later developed into the Sustainable Development Goals. That effort and all his contributions did not go recognized, because he was in fact recognized for his contributions to the United Nations. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. He was a co-recipient together with the United Nations in the year 2001. He won that prize, coupled with many other awards that he won during his reign as the UN Secretary General. There's an artist here doing something quite impressive. I really do not know how they are able to do this, but the gentleman, I'll be getting closer to him shortly. He started this morning and he's gotten to the stage. We want to find out from him where the inspiration is coming from to mount his board here and paint this picture, beautiful picture of the late Kofi Annan. Let's get closer to him, even as he interacts with. So I would want to speak to him shortly. So what's your name?
Real pen pencil.
What?
Real pen pencil.
Okay, where's the inspiration coming from doing this?
Yeah, this man he has actually done a lot for this world, and yeah, this man has actually done a lot for this world when it comes to peace. And what I learned from him is, he say whether you are black or white, we all belong to one human race. Yeah, that's what I have learned from him.
Okay, so is that what motivated you to come here this morning?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I'm told you started this morning.
We'll take you live to the grounds, the Maxwell Agbabai station there. We are actually there from now till late, and also till the funeral ends actually on Thursday. But let's bring you more on the funeral of the late Secretary General of the United Nations, former Secretary General. The Right Honourable Professor Aaron Michael Quay, the Speaker of Parliament, Shelia Yokobutri, Foreign Affairs Minister, Haruna Idrisu, Minority Leader, amongst others, were at the airport to join President Akufo-Addo receive the body of the late former UN Secretary General. Aisha Ibrahim spoke to them, and also a woman the global icon referred to as the billionaire lady.
He was a unique person. In fact, historically, he is the first UN official who has climbed through the ranks to become Secretary General. It's never been seen. And that should tell you that he was different from others.
What would you remember him for?
Well, I remember him for the reforms that he made in the United Nations administrative structure and system itself, so as to make it more efficient. Of course, because he knew it very, very well. And also for his work on development in the developing world, including the Millennium Challenge Account and all other such measures, issues relating to gender and children in particular, and also for peacekeeping, which is the primary function of the UN.
His very calm nature, the fact that in Africa he became the calming force whenever there was election and there was the threat of post-election violence or even pre-election violence. Somebody who we were all very proud of. And today he's been brought home, so that at least is a comfort.
We joined the President of the Republic and other global leaders in eulogizing a diplomatic icon. He was the diplomat's diplomats, and the world will forever fondly miss him for introducing the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals, which has now become the Sustainable Development Goals. And as the world fights to improve poverty, to ameliorate and reduce poverty, improve sanitation, we will forever be grateful to Kofi Annan, who served the world.
That moment for the world, not just for the country. He was an icon, and his spirit will live on forever.
What would you remember him for?
Well, I have a wonderful, everybody has a Kofi Annan story. I have a Kofi Annan story too. He calls me the billionaire lady, because after Ted Turner gave the $1 billion to the UN, we kind of encouraged him to do that. So that's my Kofi Annan story.
Well, James Victor Beho is a Ghanaian lawyer and diplomat. He's been speaking to Kofi Yankson about the man we are celebrating, Kofi Annan.
I got to know Kofi Annan much better later on when I served at the UN, first in the early 60s, and then after a decade as ambassador of Ghana to the United Nations. Kofi Annan was in the Secretariat of the UN there, and there was so a lot of interaction between us. What is more, soon after I went as ambassador, Kofi Annan became the head of the peacekeeping department of the United Nations. And as you know, Ghana has always been interested and active on peacekeeping around the globe. Which meant that we had to consult with the UN quite often. And it was a joy to meet and discuss with Kofi.
You must have stayed close throughout.
Yes, yes. We have been friends, but more than that, we were colleagues. And I was attracted very much to him because of his professionalism. He was a diplomat of diplomats. He was gifted, you know, with dealing with other human beings. and also it was a joy to learn from him at every meeting that we had together.
He was so soft-spoken. Is that how he was in private life as well, or was it a tool he employed for his job?
No. I think that he is a calm person. He is very circumspect, and he always thinks carefully about what to say before he says it. And that way, he is respected by many. And also because he worked in the Secretariat. Now, in diplomacy, you have diplomats like I was, speaking out loud and so on. But then you had on the other side the United Nations, which is international civil service, and those who are there are the servants of the international community, so to speak. And they are usually soft-spoken. They serve and are happy to help others with problems or to execute decisions made by politicians and so on. And this is how Kofi came out to everybody, and he was liked by many.
Of course, the reason why he's being celebrated by many in death is because of that big job that he held, the UN Secretary General. I remember in the late 90s when it was announced, how excited we all were as young people. We referred to him as the president of the world because of the central nature of that position. Do you recall how it felt when the news was announced, when Ghana was placed on the map in that way? Did you know it was going to happen? Or how do you recall feeling at the time?
Well, it's interesting that you should ask me this because I played a role in the campaign of Kofi Annan. Right from the moment when he talked to the then president of Ghana, Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings, about becoming a Secretary General, and the president agreed that he should be a Ghana candidate. He was also directed to come and see me about handling his campaign. And so between Minister Honorable Ibn Chambers and myself, we formed a campaign team or campaign manager. I went to certain countries in Africa. He went to the Middle East and so on, all asking them to support the candidature of President Kofi Annan. And eventually I ended up at the UN in New York talking to diplomats about the likelihood of the organization profiting from the selection of Kofi Annan. And then gradually the elections were held and he won.
You're watching News Desk, and we are celebrating the global icon Kofi Annan, who's been laid in state today at the Accra International Conference Center for the public to file past and pay their last respects. Let's take a look at some messages from people who signed the book of condolence opened at the University of Ghana. So this tribute from the Book of Condolence opened by the University of Ghana, where Kofi Annan was immediate past chancellor. And this is coming from Professor Ebenezer Odro-Wusu, who is vice chancellor of the university now. It says, Ghana, Africa and the world have truly lost a gem. He was humble and peaceful. Mr. Annan was a true blessing to his generation and the world at large. Rest in peace. This is from Mercy Hazel Ashia, Registrar of the University of Ghana. We are grateful for the 10 years that Mr. Annan gave to the University of Ghana. Would have wished for a chance to express the sentiment to him, but God knows best. May his gentle soul rest in perfect peace. We will miss you, sir. Mr. Kofi Annan's name will never be forgotten for the excellent way he made Africa proud when he was UN Secretary General. Always cool and collected. He handled very complex issues with wisdom. Rest in peace. This is from Professor Florence Abena-Dolphin, a former Pro-Vice Chancellor of the University of Ghana. He was an extraordinary man who inspired council, the university administration and the university community during his tenure as Chancellor. He was quite unassuming in person and easy to discuss ideas with. He was full of wise and forward-looking thoughts. The university owes him much. May his soul rest in perfect peace. Justice Professor Samuel Kofi Dateba, a former chairman, University of Ghana Council. This is from Professor C.N.B. Tego. He's a former Vice Chancellor of the University of Ghana. Says a fine gentleman and fantastic Chancellor, proud to have been your first Vice Chancellor. Uncle Kofi, may the Lord grant you eternal rest. Amen. And from Professor Henrietta J.A.N. Mensah-Bonsu from the School of Law of the University of Ghana, you have served your term and affected your generation. You represented the best of the Ghanaian, and we thank God for your life. May you find eternal rest. You're watching JoyNews Desk with me, Benis Abubedu. We'll take a quick breather now. We'll be back with more. Do stay.